Now, these are the leaders of the most advanced economies in the world, and yet behind the smiles, they're looking pretty worried. They're meeting in Hangzhou in China, and pretty much everyone, including the US president and his Chinese counterpart, is saying the same thing. Growing protectionism is harming economic growth. So what, if anything, are they going to do about it? Azhar Sukri has this report.
The light and music show was spectacular, but no amount of glitz could disguise the fact that the global economy is heading into choppy waters. And the leaders of the most powerful nations gathered at the G20 Summit in Hangzhou are urging one another to keep trade barriers low and make sure goods and services flow freely.
One of the things that we learned through the G20 process is that more than ever our economies are interconnected, and we've got more work to do together to keep the global economy growing. We have to do more to grow wages faster, to shrink inequality faster, to give everybody a shot at opportunity and security in a changing economy.
The UK-based Centre for Economic Policy Research says global trade volumes have been flat over the last 18 months after decades of steady growth. One of the reasons is that governments have become more protectionist as they respond to mounting public anger. Thousands of people have protested over the last 12 months against proposed trade agreements, such as the US-led Trans-Pacific Partnership. They complain that such deals would adversely affect small businesses and stifle wage growth. But leaders, including China's president, believe that trade remains crucial for ensuring economic well-being.
G20 countries should be brave to be the first and should take more responsibilities to create a creative, vigorous, interconnected and inclusive global economy, leading a new round of robust growth.
As a sign of its commitment, China agreed to reduce steel exports. The US and Europe have accused it of giving its industry massive subsidies, allowing it to undercut Western manufacturers. But despite the rhetoric, Beijing avoided making binding commitments to stop dumping steel. The UK's plan to leave the European Union was another cloud hanging over the summit. Obama warned British Prime Minister Theresa May that the UK would not be a priority for a US trade deal once it exits the bloc. The leaders of the G20 have promised to tackle protectionism, lower trade barriers and boost growth and wages. But their ability to do so will face unprecedented challenges in the coming years. Azhar Sukri, TRT World.
And we can get an update now from Hassan Abdullah, who's in Hangzhou. Hassan.
Thank you, Matthew. It's the last day of the G20 Leaders Summit and a number of issues have been under discussion. Let's take a look at some of them in detail. Joining us here is Tris Sainsbury from the Lowy Institute for International Policy. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. First of all, what are some of the greatest threats to the global economy right now?
Well, so what we have is a scenario of low growth, high unemployment globally. We have mounting economic risks. We have persistent and unresolved inequalities, and we have a corporate sector that continues to face incentives to distribute earnings to shareholders rather than to invest. And this is causing not only risks to the short term, but worries about longer term economic growth.
What measures have the G20 leaders agreed on to stimulate growth?
Well, the leaders are continuing to repeat the same mantra that they have had for the last 12 months of using all available tools, structural, fiscal and monetary policy tools. But we are not likely to see very much specific coming on any of these three tools coming from the leaders' communique when they make their statement later today. And there's a reason for this. There is very little consensus that is around the table that is driving a specific outcome, and countries are turning increasingly inward.
UK leaving the European Union has been under discussion here. Is that being seen as a threat to global trade?
Well, Brexit itself is not a threat to global trade, but what Brexit actually represents in terms of underlying populist sentiment within advanced economies, that is. And what we're talking about here is there is a middle class in advanced economies that is feeling disillusioned, feeling left behind. And it's this feeling of being left behind that is allowing populist platforms, like the frankly dangerous rhetoric that's coming from Donald Trump in the US, that has the potential to lead to future trade barriers that can actually reduce income gains across the world.
Right, Trace Sainsbury from the Lowy Institute for International Policy, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on TRT World. Matthew, it's over to you.